The vultures circled overhead as Logan Vale rode into Wheatland, Wyoming, with nothing but a worn saddle, a horse that had seen better days, and a past he was trying to outrun. It was late October of 1882, and the dying light painted the western horizon in shades of orange and crimson that reminded him too much of flames, too much of loss. He had been riding for 3 weeks straight from Colorado, where his small ranch had been seized by the bank after 2 years of drought, had left him with nothing to show for a decade of backbreaking work. At 32 years old, he had thought he would have built something by now, a legacy, a family, a life worth living. Instead, he had dust in his lungs and emptiness in his pockets. The main street of Wheatland was quiet as he passed through, just a few stragglers heading home for supper. The town itself was small but sturdy, with a general store, a saloon, a church with a white steeple, and a handful of other buildings that suggested this place had aspirations of becoming something more than just another forgotten stop on the map. Logan noticed a livery stable at the edge of town and guided his horse in that direction, figuring he would need to find work soon if he wanted to eat. He was thinking about whether to try the saloon or maybe see if any of the ranches nearby needed an extra hand when he saw her. She was standing on a small rise just beyond the last building in town, silhouetted against that magnificent sunset, her dark hair loose around her shoulders and her dress moving gently in the evening breeze. There was something about the way she stood there, so still and yet so alive, that made Logan pull his horse to a stop. He had no business approaching a strange woman, especially looking like he did, trail-worn and probably smelling like his horse, but something pulled at him, some invisible thread that he could not explain. He dismounted and walked his horse toward her, his boots crunching on the dry grass. She must have heard him coming, but she did not turn around, just kept her eyes on that bleeding sky. "Evening," Logan said, his voice rough from disuse. He had not spoken to another soul in days. She turned then, and he saw her face properly for the first time. She was beautiful in a way that was not delicate or fragile, but strong and real. Her eyes were a startling green, and there was an intensity in them that caught him off guard. She looked to be in her mid-20s, old enough that he wondered why she was not already married with children, because women who looked like her did not usually stay unmarried for long in these parts. "I've been waiting for someone like you," she said, and her voice was steady but held an emotion he could not quite name. Logan blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Madam," she smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I know how that sounds. I am not crazy, I promise. My name is Willa Foster. And I have been standing here every evening for the past month, watching the sunset and hoping that someone would come. Someone who looked like they understood what it meant to lose everything." Logan felt something shift in his chest. That is a specific kind of person to be waiting for. "I suppose it is." Willa turned back to the sunset, which was now fading into purples and deep blues. "You have that look about you, like you have been riding away from something or towards something, or maybe both." He should have made some polite excuse and left, but instead he found himself standing beside her, watching the last of the light disappear. "I lost my ranch," he heard himself say. 3 weeks ago, bank took it. I have been riding since, not really knowing where I was going. Just knowing I could not stay there." "I am sorry," Willa said, and she sounded like she meant it. "Loss is a heavy thing to carry." "What did you lose?" Logan asked, then immediately regretted the question. "Forgive me, that is too personal a thing to ask someone I just met." "No, it is all right." Willa wrapped her arms around herself. The temperature was dropping fast now that the sun was gone. "I lost my parents 6 months ago. Fever took them both within a week of each other. And I lost the man I thought I would marry, the though that loss came earlier and was perhaps more my choice than his. Logan nodded, not sure what to say to that. I inherited their house, Willa continued, and a small piece of land, but no money to speak of, and no real way to make a living on my own. This town has been kind to me, but I can feel their patience wearing thin. They expect me to either marry one of the local men or leave, and I cannot seem to bring myself to do either. Why not? Logan asked. Willa looked at him then, really looked at him, and he felt exposed in a way he had not felt in years. Because I keep thinking there has to be more than just settling, more than just accepting whatever life hands you because it is practical or safe. Does that make me foolish? No, Logan said quietly. I do not think it makes you foolish at all. They stood there in the growing darkness, two strangers who had somehow stumbled into an honest conversation, and Logan felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope, maybe, or possibility. Or maybe just the simple comfort of being seen by another human being who understood. I should let you get on your way, Willa said finally. You probably need to find a place to stay. The boarding house is run by Mrs. Patterson. She is fair with her prices and her rooms are clean. Thank you, Logan said. He wanted to say more, wanted to ask if he could see her again, but he had nothing to offer her except his worn-out presence and his uncertain future. As if reading his thoughts, Willa said, I will be here tomorrow evening too, watching the sunset. If you find yourself in need of company. Logan felt a smile tug at his lips for the first time in weeks. I might just take you up on that, Miss Foster. Willa, she corrected. Just Willa. Logan, he replied. Logan Vale. The boarding house was exactly as Willa had described, clean and reasonably priced, though Logan knew his meager savings would not last long even with Mrs. Patterson's fare rates. The next morning, he headed out early to look for work, visiting the various ranches that surrounded Wheatland. Most of them were small operations, family affairs that did not need extra hands, especially not with winter coming on. By mid-afternoon, he was getting discouraged when he stopped at a larger spread about 5 miles west of town. The owner, a gruff man named Carl Thompson, looked Logan up and down with a critical eye. You know horses? Thompson asked. Raised them for 10 years on my own place, Logan replied. Can break them, train them, doctor them if needed, Thompson grunted. My regular hand just quit on me. Decided to head to California. I could use someone who knows what they are doing. Pay is $30 a month, plus meals if you are working. You will need to find your own lodging, though. I do not have space for live-in help. $30 was not much, but it was better than nothing. When do I start? Tomorrow morning, sun up. Do not be late. Logan rode back to Wheatland feeling lighter than he had in weeks. He had work, which meant he could afford to stay at least for a while, and he could stay in Wheatland, which meant he could see Willa again. That thought surprised him with its intensity. He barely knew the woman. They had shared one conversation in the fading light, but there had been something in that moment, something real and raw and honest that he wanted to explore. He found himself heading back to that same rise just as the sun was beginning its descent. Willa was already there, standing in almost the exact same spot as the night before. This time she turned when she heard him approach, and the smile that lit her face made his heart do something complicated in his chest. You came back, she said. I said I might, Logan replied, stopping beside her. Might and did are two different things. Willa looked pleased, though. How did your day go? Did you find work? He told her about the job at the Thompson Ranch, and she nodded approvingly. Carl Thompson is a fair man, demanding but fair. He will not cheat you on your wages. That is good to know. Logan paused. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you say what you said yesterday? That you had been waiting for someone like me? Willa was quiet for a moment, watching the sky turn gold. Do you believe in intuition, Logan? I am not sure. Maybe. I have always had a strong sense about things, about people. And lately, that sense has been telling me that something is going to change, that someone is going to come into my life who will understand me in a way that no one here does. She glanced at him. When I saw you riding in yesterday, looking like you were carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, I just knew. I knew you were the person I had been waiting for. Logan should have been unnerved by this confession. It was strange, overly familiar, the kind of thing that should have sent him running. But instead he felt understood in a way he never had before. I feel like I know you, he said slowly, which makes no sense because we only met yesterday. No, Willa agreed. It makes no sense at all. And yet here we are. They watched the sunset together again, and this time when the darkness fell, Logan walked Willa back to her house on the edge of town. It was a small but well-maintained place with a porch and a garden that had been put to bed for the winter. "Would you like to come to supper tomorrow night?" Willa asked. "I am not the best cook, but I can manage a decent stew." "I would like that very much," Logan said. Over the following weeks, a pattern developed. Logan would work at the Thompson Ranch during the day, dealing with the horses and the various tasks that came with running a cattle operation in late autumn. In the evenings, he would return to town and spend time with Willa. Sometimes they would watch the sunset together. Other times he would come to her house for supper, and they would talk for hours about everything and nothing. He learned that she had wanted to be a teacher, but her parents had needed her help at home. He learned that she loved to read and had a small collection of books that she treasured. He learned that she was fiercely independent but also deeply lonely, caught between the life she had lost and the uncertain future ahead of her. She learned about his childhood in Missouri, about his dreams of building something that would last, about the quiet devastation of watching those dreams crumble. She learned that he was patient and steady, good with his hands and better with animals than people, though he was learning to be better with her. The town noticed, of course. In a place as small as Wheatland, everything was noticed. Logan heard the whispers at the general store when he stopped in for supplies. He saw the looks from the men at the saloon when he would grab a quick drink before heading to Willa's house. Some of the talk was approving, some of it was jealous, and some of it was downright nasty. It came to a head one evening in late November when Logan was leaving the saloon and ran into Roy Hadfield, one of the local men who had been courting Willa before her parents died. "Vale," Roy said, blocking his path. He was a big man, taller than Logan and broader through the shoulders with a mean streak that showed in his eyes. "We need to have a talk about Willa Foster." Logan kept his voice calm. "I do not think that is any of your business, Roy. Like hell it is not." Roy stepped closer, and Logan could smell the whiskey on his breath. "She was supposed to marry me before her parents passed. Would have too, if they had not gotten sick. And now you come riding in here with nothing to your name and suddenly she does not have time for any of us. From what Willa told me, she ended things with you long before her parents died," Logan said evenly. "And who she spends her time with is her choice, not yours." Roy's face darkened. "You think you are better than us, some drifter with no prospects." "I think I should be going," Logan said, trying to step around him. Roy grabbed his arm. "I am not done talking to you." Logan looked down at the hand on his arm, then back up at Roy's face. "Let go of me." For a moment he thought Roy was going to swing at him. But then the saloon door opened and Sheriff Thomas Langley stepped out, taking in the scene with sharp eyes. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" The sheriff was an older man, probably in his late 50s, with gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude. Roy dropped his hand. "No problem, Sheriff. Just having a conversation." "Looked like more than a conversation to me," Langley said. Roy, I think you should head on home. Sleep off whatever you have been drinking." Roy glared at Logan but did as he was told, stomping off into the darkness. Langley turned to Logan. "You all right?" "Fine, thank you." Roy's been sore about Willa Foster for a while now. Does not like that she turned him down. Langley paused. "You seem like a decent sort, Vale. But you should know that there are some folks in this town who do not take kindly to outsiders, especially ones who court local women." "I appreciate the warning," Logan said. "Just keep your nose clean and you will be fine," Langley said, tipping his hat before heading off on his evening rounds. Logan walked to Willa's house, his mind churning. He had not thought much about how his presence might be affecting her standing in the community. She had already been in a precarious position, and now he might be making it worse. Willa took one look at his face when she opened the door and pulled him inside. "What happened?" He told her about the encounter with Roy, and her expression turned stormy. "Roy Hadfield is a bully and a drunk," she said firmly. "I ended our courtship because he scared me, the way he wanted to control everything I did. My parents were relieved when I told them, though they worried what would happen after they were gone." Logan reached out and took her hand. "I do not want to cause trouble for you, Willa. You are not causing trouble. Roy is causing trouble, and he has been doing it long before you arrived." She squeezed his fingers. "I am tired of living my life based on what other people think I should do. I spent so many years being the dutiful daughter, putting my own wants aside. And then, when I finally had the freedom to choose my own path, I was too scared to take it. Until you came." "Willa," he started, but she shook her head. "Let me finish. You make me feel brave, Logan, like the world is bigger than just this town and the expectations people have, like there might actually be a future worth hoping for." Her eyes were bright with emotion. "I am falling in love with you. I know it is fast, and I know we have not known each other long, but I cannot pretend I do not feel it." Logan felt his breath catch in his chest. He had been trying so hard not to let himself feel too much, too fast. He had been burned before by hope, by dreams that fell apart. But standing here with Willa, with her hand in his and her heart laid bare, he could not hold back any more. "I am falling in love with you too," he said, and the words felt like a confession and a promise all at once. "You make me believe that maybe I can build something again. That maybe losing everything was just making room for something better." She stepped closer, and he cupped her face in his hands, marveling at the way she looked at him like he was something precious. When he kissed her, it was soft and sweet and full of all the things he did not have words for yet. Winter settled over Wheatland with a vengeance. The snows came early and heavy, making the work at the Thompson Ranch harder but also giving Logan more hours, which meant more money. He was saving everything he could, making plans that he had not dared to make before. He and Willa spent Christmas together, exchanging small gifts. He gave her a book of poetry that he had ordered special from the general store, and she gave him a new pair of riding gloves that she had sewn herself. They shared a meal at her house, just the two of them, and it felt more like home than anywhere Logan had been in years. On New Year's Eve, as they stood together watching the first sunset of 1883, Logan took a deep breath and turned to Willa. "I want to ask you something," he said. "And you can say no if it is too soon or if you have doubts, but I need to ask." Willa turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "What is it?" "I have been saving my wages. I have enough now to put a down payment on a small piece of land just outside of town. Nothing fancy, but enough to build a house, enough to start a life." He took her hands in his. "I want to build that life with you, Willa. I want to marry you if you will have me." Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes, yes, Logan, I will marry you." He kissed her there on the rise where they had first met, with the sky turning brilliant shades of orange and pink around them, and felt like everything in his life had been leading to this moment. They were married in February in the small church with the white steeple. The ceremony was simple, attended by a handful of people from town and Carl Thompson and his wife. Sheriff Langley stood as a witness, and Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house cried through the whole thing. Roy Hadfield did not attend, which was a relief to everyone. After the ceremony, Logan took Willa to see the land he had purchased. It was 5 acres with a small creek running through it and a view of the mountains in the distance. There was nothing on it yet except prairie grass and possibility, but Willa looked at it like it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "We will build our house right there," she said, pointing to a spot near the creek, "with a big porch so we can watch the sunsets." "Whatever you want," Logan said, pulling her close. They lived with Willa's house in town while Logan worked on building their new home. He would spend his days at the Thompson Ranch and his evenings and weekends working on the construction. It was slow going, doing most of the work himself, but he was determined to build something solid, something that would last. Other men from town started helping, despite the earlier tensions. It turned out that once Logan had proved he was staying, once people saw how hard he worked and how devoted he was to Willa, their attitudes softened. Even some of the men who had been cold to him at first began showing up with tools and lumber, offering their labor. By late spring, the house was finished. It was not large, just 4 rooms, but it was well built and sturdy. And it had that big porch Willa had wanted, perfect for watching the sunsets together. They moved in on a warm day in May, carrying Willa's belongings from her parents' house to their new home. That night, they sat on their porch and watched the sun go down, and Logan felt a peace he had never known before. "Thank you," Willa said softly. "For what?" "For being the person I was waiting for making me believe in possibilities again." Logan kissed her temple. "I should be thanking you. You saved me, Willa. I was so lost when I came here, and you gave me a reason to stay, a reason to build again." Life settled into a rhythm. Logan continued working for Carl Thompson, who had come to rely on him more and more. Willa sold her parents' house and used the money to buy chickens and a milk cow, starting a small operation of her own selling eggs and butter in town. The work was hard but satisfying. They would wake before dawn and work until dusk, then collapse into bed exhausted but content. On Sundays, they would rest, attending church in the morning and spending the afternoons reading or riding out to explore the countryside. In the fall of 1883, Willa told Logan she was expecting a baby. He had never seen her look so nervous and so happy at the same time. "A baby," he repeated, trying to wrap his mind around it. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Willa asked, searching his face. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "Happy does not even begin to cover it." "I am terrified and thrilled and so in love with you I can barely stand it." She laughed, the sound muffled against his chest. "Good, because I am all of those things too." The winter of 1884 was harsh, but Logan made sure Willa wanted for nothing. He worked extra hours, saving up for the doctor's fees and all the things they would need for the baby. Carl Thompson was generous, giving Logan a raise and letting him take time off as Willa's due date approached. Their son was born on a cold March morning, arriving with a lusty cry that announced his presence to the world. Logan had never experienced anything like the moment when the doctor placed that tiny, wrinkled creature in his arms. Love hit him like a physical blow, so intense he could barely breathe. "What should we name him?" Willa asked, looking exhausted but radiant. They had discussed names but never settled on anything definite. Logan looked down at his son, at this perfect little person who was somehow his, and thought about the journey that had brought him here. about loss and hope and the woman who had been waiting on a rise watching the sunset. "Samuel," he said, "after your father." Willa's eyes filled with tears. "Samuel, it is perfect." Samuel Vale was a healthy baby with a good set of lungs and an appetite that kept Willa busy day and night. Logan would walk the floor with him in the evenings, singing old songs his own mother had taught him, watching in wonder as those tiny eyes tracked his face. Parenthood changed them, deepened them. There were hard moments, nights when Samuel would not stop crying and they were both too tired to think straight. But there were far more moments of pure joy, like when Samuel smiled for the first time or when he started to recognize them, and would kick his legs in excitement when they came near. As Samuel grew, so did their little homestead. Logan bought a few cattle, adding them to their small herd. Willa expanded her egg business, becoming known for having the best eggs in Wheatland. They hired a young man named Peter to help with the heavier work, allowing Logan to spend more time with his family. Roy Hadfield left town in the spring of 1885, heading to Montana to work on the railroad. Logan felt nothing but relief when he heard the news. The man had never caused any real trouble after that first confrontation, but his presence had always been a shadow at the edge of their happiness. That summer, Carl Thompson offered to sell Logan a portion of his ranch. Thompson was getting older and his children had no interest in ranching. He wanted to retire, but did not want to see the land he had worked so hard for fall into the hands of strangers. "I have watched you these past few years," Thompson said. "You are honest and hardworking, and you know horses better than anyone I have ever met. I would rather sell to you than to some corporation that will only care about profit." The price was fair, but it was still more money than Logan had ever contemplated spending. He talked it over with Willa long into the night. "It is a risk," she said, "but so was coming here in the first place. So was building this house. So was everything that has brought us to where we are now." "I could not have done any of it without you," Logan said, "and you will not do this without me either," Willa replied. "We are partners, Logan, in everything." They bought the land, using their savings and taking out a loan from the bank. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Suddenly, they were responsible for 300 acres, a herd of over 100 cattle, and all the work that came with it. Logan hired more help, bringing on 2 experienced ranch hands who had been working for Thompson for years. He threw himself into the work with everything he had, determined to make this succeed. But he also made sure to carve out time for Willa and Samuel, remembering the lessons he had learned about what really mattered. Every evening, no matter how busy the day had been, they would stop and watch the sunset together. Sometimes all 3 of them, with Samuel perched on Logan's shoulders pointing at the colors in the sky. It was their ritual, their reminder of where they had started and how far they had come. In the fall of 1886, Willa told Logan she was pregnant again. This time the news came with less fear and more anticipation. They knew what to expect now, knew the challenges and the joys that awaited them. Their daughter was born in May of 1887, arriving on a soft spring evening as the sun was setting. Logan held Willa's hand through the labor, amazed all over again at her strength and courage. "Another perfect one," the doctor said, placing the baby in Willa's arms. She was smaller than Samuel had been, with a cap of dark hair and her mother's green eyes. They named her Clara, after Logan's mother, and she fit into their family like she had always been meant to be there. Samuel, now 3 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister. He would sit beside her cradle for hours, talking to her in his toddler language and bringing her his favorite toys. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Logan proved to have a gift not just for horses, but for the business side of ranching as well. He made smart decisions about breeding and selling, building relationships with buyers in Denver and Cheyenne. The Vale name became synonymous with quality in the region, but success did not change them. They still lived in the same house Logan had built, though they added on a few rooms as the family grew. They still attended church on Sundays and participated in town events. Willa still sold her eggs and butter, though more as a social connection than a financial necessity now. In 1889, Willa announced she was pregnant for a third time. This pregnancy was harder on her than the previous two, and the doctor ordered her to rest more. Logan hired a woman from town to help with the housework and the children, refusing to let Willa do anything that might put her or the baby at risk. Their second son was born in early 1890, smaller and weaker than the other two had been. For a few terrifying days, they were not sure he would survive. But he was a fighter, and slowly he grew stronger. They named him Henry, and he became the most spirited of all their children, despite his rough start. He was walking before his first birthday and getting into everything he could reach. The 1890s brought changes to Wheatland and to Wyoming as a whole. The frontier was taming, becoming more settled and civilized. The railroad expanded, bringing more people and more commerce. The days of the wild frontier were fading into memory. Logan watched these changes with mixed feelings. He was glad for the stability and opportunity they brought, but he also felt a touch of nostalgia for the rawer, simpler time when he had first arrived in Wheatland. "You ever regret it?" he asked Willa one evening as they sat on their porch watching yet another sunset. The children were inside with the hired girl getting ready for bed. "Regret what?" Willa asked. "This life. Marrying me. Sometimes I think about what you could have had if you had chosen differently. You could have married someone with more to offer, someone who did not come to you with nothing but a worn-out horse and broken dreams." Willa turned to look at him, and there was such love in her eyes that it took his breath away even after all these years. "Logan Vale, you listened to me. You did not come to me with nothing. You came to me with everything I had been waiting for. Honesty, integrity, a heart that had been broken but was still capable of love. Do I regret marrying you? Not for a single second of a single day. You are the best decision I ever made." He kissed her, tasting the truth of her words. "I love you, Willa, more now than even that day I asked you to marry me." "I love you too," she said. "Always have. Always will." In 1895, Samuel turned 11 and started helping more seriously on the ranch. He had Logan's patience with animals and Willa's head for numbers, a combination that promised well for the future of the Vale Ranch. Clara, now 8, was bookish like her mother but also fearless, often found climbing trees or racing her horse across the fields. Henry, at 5, was the charmer, able to talk his way out of trouble with a smile. Logan looked at his children and saw the future stretching out before them, full of possibility. He and Willa had built something that would last, something that would outlive them. It was a legacy not just of land and cattle, but of love and hard work, and the belief that broken things could be mended, that lost people could be found. That year, Carl Thompson passed away peacefully in his sleep. Logan attended the funeral with Willa and the children, grateful for the opportunity the old man had given him. Thompson had seen something in a dusty, desperate drifter that others had missed. He had offered not just a job but a chance at redemption. The turn of the century came, and with it, a sense of entering a new era. Wheatland had grown into a proper town with electric lights on the main street and talk of bringing in telephone lines. The children attended a real school now, with 3 teachers and a proper curriculum. Logan was 49 years old, and sometimes he could hardly believe how much his life had changed since that day in 1882, when he had ridden into Wheatland with nothing to his name. He had a thriving ranch, a wife he adored, 3 healthy children, and the respect of his community. But more than any of that, he had happiness. Real, deep, lasting happiness. Willa turned 43 that year, and she was more beautiful to him than she had been at 25. There were lines around her eyes now from years of squinting into the sun and smiling. Her hair had strands of silver mixed in with the dark. But when she looked at him, he still saw the woman who had been standing on that rise watching the sunset, waiting for someone who would understand. In 1902, Samuel married a local girl named Elizabeth, daughter of the man who ran the general store. It was a joyous occasion, with the whole town turning out for the celebration. Logan watched his son pledge his life to his new bride and felt the circle of life continuing. Samuel and Elizabeth built a house on the far side of the ranch property, and Samuel became more involved in the day-to-day operations. Logan was grateful for the help and proud of the man his son had become. Clara showed no interest in marriage, much to the consternation of the local young men. She announced at 16 that she wanted to go to normal school and become a teacher, fulfilling the dream her mother had once had. Logan and Willa supported her completely, sending her to Laramie for her training. Henry, meanwhile, developed a passion for horses that matched his father's. He could ride anything, break the wildest bronc, and had an almost supernatural ability to understand what an animal needed. Logan knew the ranch would be in good hands with both Samuel's business sense and Henry's horsemanship. In 1905, Willa's health began to decline. It started small, just tiredness that rest did not cure, a cough that would not go away. The doctor came and went, but could offer no real diagnosis, no cure. She grew thinner, frailer, despite Logan's desperate attempts to get her to eat, to rest, to do anything that might help. It terrified Logan in a way nothing ever had before. He had faced drought and debt, harsh winters and difficult calving seasons. But the thought of losing Willa, of facing a world without her in it, was more than he could bear. "I am not going anywhere yet," Willa told him one evening as they sat together on the porch. She was wrapped in blankets despite the mild spring weather. "I still have too much to see, too much to do." "You have to fight," Logan said, his voice breaking. "Please, Willa." "I cannot do this without you." "You could," she said softly. "You are stronger than you think, but you will not have to, not yet." And she was right. Slowly over the summer she began to improve. The cough faded, her appetite returned. By fall she was back to her old self, though she tired more easily than before. The doctor said it might have been pneumonia or perhaps consumption that had somehow reversed. He could not be certain, but whatever it had been, it seemed to be gone. Logan did not care what it had been called. He only cared that Willa was still with him, still sitting beside him watching the sunsets, still the center of his world. In 1907, Clara came home from her teaching position in Cheyenne to announce that she was engaged to a fellow teacher named William. The wedding was planned for the following spring, and Logan walked his daughter down the aisle with tears in his eyes. Samuel and Elizabeth had given them 2 grandchildren by then, a boy and a girl. Henry married in 1909, choosing a rancher's daughter from a neighboring spread. More grandchildren followed, filling the house with noise and laughter. Logan and Willa watched their family grow, watched their children build their own lives while still remaining close. Sunday dinners became a tradition, with the whole extended family gathering at the big house, children running through the yard while the adults talked and laughed. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1908, Logan took Willa back to the rise where they had first met. It was just the 2 of them, stealing away from the celebration their children had planned. They stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in familiar shades of orange and crimson, and Logan thought about everything that had happened since that first evening. "Do you remember what you said to me that night?" he asked. "When I first saw you here," Willa smiled. "I said I had been waiting for someone like you. Did I live up to your expectations?" She turned to face him, cupping his face in her hands the way he had done to her so many times over the years. "You exceeded every expectation I ever had. You gave me a life full of love and adventure and meaning. You gave me children and grandchildren and a home that is more than just four walls. You gave me everything, Logan. You did the same for me," he said. "I was so lost when I came here, broken and bitter and convinced I would never have anything worth holding on to, and then I saw you standing here and everything changed." They kissed as the sun disappeared below the horizon, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life worth living. The years continued to roll by, bringing both joys and sorrows. Carl Thompson's widow passed in 1910. Sheriff Langley retired in 1912. The world beyond Wheatland was changing rapidly, with automobiles becoming more common and talk of war in Europe. But on the Vale Ranch, life continued in its steady rhythm. Cattle were born and sold. Horses were trained and broken. Crops were planted and harvested. Grandchildren grew and brought home their own sweethearts. In 1915, Logan turned 65. He was still working the ranch, though he left more of the heavy labor to his sons now. His hair had gone completely gray and his joints ached in the mornings, but he was healthy and content. Willa, at 58, spent her days with her grandchildren, teaching them to read and sharing her books with them. She still kept chickens, though more as pets now than for eggs. She had mellowed with age but lost none of her spirit or independence. They still watched the sunset together every evening that weather allowed. It was their time, sacred and unchanging, a reminder of where they had started and all they had built together. On a warm evening in June of 1917, they sat on their porch as they had thousands of times before. The sky was particularly beautiful that night, streaked with gold and pink and purple. "I have been thinking," Willa said, leaning against Logan's shoulder, "about that first night, about what made me say what I did." "What about it?" Logan asked, his arm around her. "I think some part of me knew," she said. "Knew that you were going to change my life. Knew that everything I had been through, all the loss and loneliness, was leading me to that moment, leading me to you." Logan kissed the top of her head. "I know what you mean. It felt like fate somehow. Like I had been traveling toward you my whole life without knowing it." "Do you think we would have found each other if you had gone to a different town?" Willa asked. "If you had ridden past Wheatland instead of stopping?" "I do not know," Logan admitted. "Maybe. Or maybe we only get one chance at the kind of love we found, and I was lucky enough to take it." Willa lifted her head to look at him. "We were both lucky to find each other, to build this life, to have all these years together." "And we will have many more," Logan said firmly, though they both knew time was not infinite. "However many we get, it will be enough," Willa said, "because every day with you has been a gift." They sat there until the stars came out, holding each other close, grateful for the past and whatever future remained. The war in Europe ended in 1918, and the sons of Wheatland came home, some whole and some broken. Henry's oldest son enlisted against his parents' wishes, but came back safe, though changed by what he had seen. The 1920s brought prosperity to the ranch and to the region. Cattle prices were good, and the Vale Ranch was recognized as one of the finest operations in Wyoming. Samuel ran most of the business now, with Henry managing the horse operation. Logan served as an advisor, offering his hard-won wisdom when asked. He also spent more time with Willa, taking her on trips to Denver and Cheyenne, treating her to the things they had been too busy or too poor to afford in their younger years. She protested the extravagance, but he could tell she enjoyed it. Clara and her husband moved back to Wheatland in 1922, and she took a position teaching at the local school. Having her close again brought Willa particular joy. In 1923, on a crisp October evening, Logan and Willa celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Their children and grandchildren, now numbering over 20, gathered for a huge celebration. There were speeches and toasts, laughter and tears. But the best part of the day, at least for Logan, was when he and Willa slipped away to their spot on the rise and watched the sunset together, just the two of them. 40 years, Willa said wonderingly. It feels like both a lifetime and no time at all. I would do it all again, Logan said. Every hard day, every struggle, all of it just to end up here with you. So would I, Willa agreed. You are still the person I was waiting for, Logan Vale. All those years ago, you still are. They stood there as the light faded, two people who had found each other in the vastness of the frontier and built a legacy of love. Logan passed away peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1928, at the age of 78. He had spent his last day working with a particularly difficult horse, then shared dinner with Willa and watched one more sunset from their porch. He went to bed holding her hand and simply never woke up. Willa mourned him deeply but took comfort in their children and grandchildren, in the life they had built together. She stayed in the house Logan had built for her, kept his side of the bed made, and continued to watch the sunsets from their porch. She told anyone who would listen about the day a dusty, desperate cowboy had ridden into Wheatland and changed her life forever. About how she had been waiting on that rise, hoping for something she could not name, and found everything she never knew she needed. Willa Foster Vale passed away in her sleep in 1932, at the age of 75. Her children found her in her favorite chair on the porch, wrapped in one of Logan's old jackets, facing west where the sun had set the night before. They buried her beside Logan on the rise where they had first met, with a simple headstone that read, "Here lie Logan and Willa Vale. They found each other at sunset and loved until the stars came out." The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through generations. The house Logan built still stands, carefully maintained by his descendants. And sometimes, on particularly beautiful evenings, those descendants gather on the porch and watch the sunset together, remembering the love story that started it all. The story of a broken man who rode into Wheatland with nothing but hope, and a woman who had been waiting for someone exactly like him. The story of two people who found each other against all odds and built a life that lasted long after they were gone. Their great-great-grandchildren still live on the land, still work the ranch, still tell the story of Logan and Willa. How he found her watching the sunset, how she said she had been waiting for someone like him, how they fell in love and built something that would endure. And on quiet evenings in Wheatland, Wyoming, when the light turns gold and the sky streaks with color, some say you can still feel their presence on that rise. Two souls who found each other when they needed it most, who built a love that transcended time and circumstance, who proved that sometimes the best things in life come when you are brave enough to hope for them. The Vale Ranch prospered through the Depression and the Second World War, through droughts and boom times, through all the changes that swept across the American West. Because Logan and Willa had built it on a foundation of love and hard work, on partnership and mutual respect, on the belief that together they could weather any storm. Their legacy was not just land or cattle or wealth, though those things remained. Their legacy was the example they set, the love they shared, the family they created. It was the story passed down through generations of what it means to truly find the person you are meant to be with, to build a life together that matters. And it all started on an October evening in 1882, when a dusty cowboy saw a woman watching the sunset and stopped to see why. When she turned to him and said words that would change both their lives forever, "I've been waiting for someone like you." Those words turned out to be truer than either of them could have known. They had been waiting for each other, even if they had not realized it, waiting through loneliness and loss, through hardship and heartbreak. Waiting for that moment when two paths would cross on the frontier and create something beautiful and lasting. In the end, their story was not about the Wild West or cattle ranching or taming the frontier. It was about two people who recognized each other, who took a chance on love when it would have been easier to walk away, who built a life together day by day, sunset by sunset, until they had created something extraordinary out of the ordinary moments they shared. And that story, the story of Logan and Willa Vale, lived on long after they were gone, a testament to the power of love to transform, to heal, to endure. A reminder that sometimes the best things in life come to us when we least expect them, in the form of a stranger on a rise, watching the sunset and waiting for someone exactly like us.